Hey guys, tonight we're plunging back in time to explore the daily trials and fleeting triumphs of a medieval woman from that very first cry to the final resting place in the village churchyard. You're about to see life through her eyes, her struggle, her resilience, and the odd humour of history that will either make you grateful for your cosy bed or have you questioning your own comfort. And yes, you probably won't survive this, but don't worry, we're just visiting. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is. I love to see how far this sleepy caravan can roam. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're born on a chilly spring dawn, the crocuses just starting to peek through the thawing mud outside. Your mother is pale, sweat beading her brow as the village midwife murmurs half prayers, half commands. The air is thick with the scents of rosemary, and smoke from the hearth. Medieval childbirth is a performance of survival and superstition. A cup of mead for the pain, a cross hanging from the bedpost, and the midwife's worn hands guiding you into this cold world. You're the first cry a wail that means hope and fear all at once. They say babies come into the world howling because they already know how hard it's going to be. And in medieval Europe, they're not wrong. If you're lucky, the midwife smacks your bottom just enough to make sure those tiny lungs work. If not, well, let's not dwell on that tonight. Your father, if he's nearby, might hover at the door, nerves jangling like a pilgrim's bell. Men aren't usually invited to this room. It's a women's world in here. But he'll be expected to pay the midwife in bread or beer. Some traditions never change. Historians still argue whether fathers were more relieved or disappointed when a girl was born. Sons meant fields tilled and swords swung. Daughters meant alliances sealed, households tended. But either way, you're here blinking in the dawn. The midwife ties off the cord with a bit of homespun linen, saying a quick charm under her breath. You're swaddled in wool and tucked close to your mother's breast, and the room shifts from labour's chaos to something almost tender, a brief lull before the next storm. The midwife, who's seen more births than most lords see battles, wraps you in superstition as much as cloth. A sprig of rue at the window to keep away witches, a charm of iron to protect from elves that might steal healthy babes in the night. Even if she's not a learned woman, she knows her lore, and she knows that in this world every birth is a gamble. Outside the village stirs to life. Roosters crow, the forge hisses, and neighbours swap gossip over fences that lean like old men. But in here you're a soft bundle of potential, fragile as a May morning. The hearth glows warm and the cat slinks past, tail flicking. Even the cat seems to know how precarious this moment is. Your mother, flushed and weary, is already fretting about the future. Will you grow strong? Will you see more than a handful of summers? Because the brutal fact is that a third of infants might not. And in the candlelit hush of this chamber, she's already counting your future in prayers and whispered bargains with the saints. One curious tidbit: some medieval women believed that the mother's thoughts during labour shaped the baby's soul. If she was fearful, you might grow timid. If she was brave, you might be fierce. So as your mother grips that wooden bedpost and bears down with each wave of pain, she's not just birthing you, she's imprinting you with every thought that flickers in her mind. You're weighed not on scales of brass, but in the careful measuring of tiny fingers and toes, each one counted and kissed. And then here's where it gets a little odd: the midwife might slip a drop of her own milk onto your lips, just to taste a superstition that if the first milk comes from a wise woman, you'll grow wise too, or so the village says. Already the world outside is tugging at you. The door to this smoky room might open to a draught of fresh air, or to the stink of the yard where pigs root in the muck. You're a medieval baby born into a life that's going to be equal parts beauty and back-breaking labour, laughter and loss. But for now, you're just a newborn in your mother's arms, and she's holding you like a secret. The midwife dips her fingers in a bowl of warm water and traces a cross on your forehead. You're baptized in hope and holy water soon after, maybe at the village's ancient stone church, its nave echoing with Latin that neither you nor your parents understand. But that's a story for another night. Tonight you're simply here, eyes wide in the firelight, the first breath of a life that will be measured in seasons, not years. Your mother whispers your name softly like a promise, and the midwife gathers up her herbs and her worn-out smile. Outside the world is waiting, but inside for one fleeting moment there's nothing but warmth and the gentle hush of a medieval cradle song. And so your journey begins swaddled, blessed, and already burdened with the hopes of your family. From the first cry to the final bell, this is the life of a medieval woman, and tonight we're walking it step by step. The days that follow your first cry are a swirl of warmth, hunger, and hushed voices. You're wrapped in layers of wool and linen, cocooned against the draughts that sneak through the wattle and daub walls. The scent of fresh straw, goat's milk, and hearth smoke is the perfume of your new world. Outside, chickens scratch in the yard, oblivious to the small drama unfolding in this cramped wooden cottage. Your mother's milk is your first feast, and it's more than just sustenance, it's a lifeline. Medieval mothers know that the first thin milk, the colostrum, is precious. It's called beestings, in some parts thick golden and packed with protection. If your mother is too weak or the milk doesn't come in, the village will murmur in worry. Because in these first weeks, milk means life. And if it isn't there, a wet nurse is the next line of defence. She's a woman paid in bread and beer to nourish the children of others, an ancient profession built on the primal need to keep little hearts beating. The midwife stays close in those early days. She's a keeper of secrets, like how to coax milk with warm compresses, or how to chant charms for a mother's quick recovery. She might rub your mother's belly with rosemary oil, muttering verses that seem half spell, half prayer. Historians still argue whether these charms were more comfort or cure, but in a world without doctors, for the poor words and hands are often the same medicine. You sleep in a rough cradle near the hearth. Nights are long and cold, and your mother dozes in fits and starts always half awake for your next cry. She worries about the changeling too, a deep-rooted fear that you might be snatched by fairies or spirits and swapped with something else. A child who won't feed, who cries too much, who grows thin and hollow-eyed. These are the telltale signs. So she keeps a piece of iron near your cradle, a rusty nail maybe, or a shard of plough blade. Iron, they say, wards off the things that creep in the dark. The midwife also teaches your mother small tricks, how to smear honey on your gums when your cries turn shrill with teething pain, or how to brew a tea of chamomile and fennel to soothe a colicky belly. These are the quiet arts of survival passed down from mother to daughter like a secret inheritance. By day your mother's world contracts to the rhythm of feeding and rocking. She hums old songs while she churns the butter or kneads bread at the table, pausing every few minutes to check if you're still breathing, because that's the fear that curls around every medieval cradle, the knowledge that life is as fragile as a snowflake on the thatch roof. Meanwhile, your father drifts at the edges of these early days, proud but awkward. He might carve a wooden rattle for you, whittling a bit of yew wood into something to distract your tiny hands. Or he might just watch from the doorway, unsure how to be part of this tender, half-lit world of feeding and fretting. In many villages, fathers keep their distance. Some say it's shame. Others say it's the unspoken rule that a woman's domain begins with the cradle. One curious tidbit: in some medieval villages, mothers would drink ale spiced with warm ginger and caraway seeds to help bring in the milk. The rich, yeasty drink was believed to strengthen the body and sweeten the milk for babies like you. So while you're suckling away, your mother might be sipping her own potent brew. The midwife is the guardian of your first weeks, but soon she'll slip away to another birth down the road, leaving your mother to navigate the rest of your infancy alone. And that's where the true test begins. Because in this world there are no soft blankets or sterilized bottles, just the endless cycle of hunger and hushed laughter and tears. Your mother learns to read your small sounds like a map, your hiccups, your whimpers, your startled gasps when the fire cracks. She knows when you're just fussing and when it's the wail of real pain. It's an intimacy deeper than words, one built on the scent of milk and the weight of your tiny head against her shoulder. But even as she rocks you, she's thinking ahead. She knows that in just a few short years you'll be a toddler underfoot, pulling at the laces of her dress, pestering the chickens and trying to steal crusts of bread from the table. The medieval woman's mind is always half a step ahead, planning for winter, for harvest, for the next baby that might come along. Because in this world a woman's work is never done, and her heart is always divided between the children she's lost and the ones she's still holding. At night the wind howls outside and the rafters creak like old bones. You drift in and out of sleep, lulled by the soft murmur of your mother's voice as she recites a prayer over your cradle. "Holy Mary, gentle mother," she whispers, "keep this child safe from harm." And maybe, just maybe, the saints are listening. So you're cradled in milk and midwives in old songs and iron charms. And though you're too young to know it, your mother's love is your first shield against the world. A shield made not of steel or stone, but of calloused hands, warm milk, and the kind of hope that only a medieval woman can muster. The weeks pass in a gentle smoky haze. Your cries soften into coos, your limbs stretch and your world grows from the curve of your mother's shoulder to the small patch of earth just outside the door. But even here, superstition and fear thread through your days like an invisible tapestry. You're swaddled and watched, kept safe with rituals that are as old as the hills. Your mother binds you tight in linen bands, a snug burrito of wool and cloth. She believes it will help your bones grow straight, your back as strong as a ploughman's, your limbs unbent by the world's burdens. And let's be honest, she needs you snug and still while she works. Because in this world there's no nursery, no quiet hour of maternal leisure. The cradle is tucked by the hearth, and your mother's life pulses around it in endless circles of work. She's always within earshot, always listening for the change in your cry that means hunger or pain, or the nightmare of a wet nappy in the cold of winter. She soothes you with soft words and lullabies, scraps of Latin prayers, and the village's half-forgotten ballads. It's her voice that roots you to this world. And yet, for all her tender care, she's also watching for the things that slip through the cracks of sense. The village is a place of old beliefs and older fears. She pins sprigs of rue and fennel above your cradle's sharp-scented guardians to keep away the spirits that might want to snatch you in the night. The midwife taught her that baby's first smile is a test. If it comes too soon, some say it's a sign of a changeling. And so she watches your every twitch, every sleepy grin with a mixture of delight and dread. Meanwhile, life carries on around you. The chickens squabble in the yard, the hearthfire crackles, and your older siblings, if you have them, sneak peeks at you, curious and a little jealous. They've seen babies come and go, and they know how precarious these early days can be. One curious tidbit: medieval mothers sometimes rubbed a smudge of their own spit on a baby's forehead, murmuring a charm against the evil eye. It sounds odd now, but in a world where every shadow held a threat, you took comfort where you could. And so you lie there, a tiny bundle of possibility, cradled in the warmth of your mother's love and the fierce power of her fear. Your father, for his part, might carve a little amulet for you from a bit of rowan wood, or he might press a coin worn thin from years of barter into your mother's hand to be tucked under your pillow as a charm. Historians still argue whether these gestures were born of true faith, or just the desperate need to do something, anything, to keep the spectre of death at bay. And while you're too small to understand it, your world is a performance of protection. Each night your mother mutters her prayers to the saints, crossing herself. and you in a flurry of half-remembered Latin. She lights a tallow candle and lets the flame burn low, a flickering shield against whatever lurks in the corners of the room. The cat curls at your mother's feet, purring like a soft drum beat. Even the cat has its part to play, some say another watcher in the night, another set of eyes to guard your sleep. And you dream baby dreams of warmth and milk, of the soft tickle of wool against your cheek, of the world outside that still seems as distant as the stars. But there's more to this early watchfulness than just the fear of spirits. Your mother is learning you as she learns the bread dough in the morning, by touch, by sound, by the alchemy of daily life. She knows the feel of your tiny bones shifting against the cradle's wood, the small huff of your breath as you nestle deeper into your swaddling. And in those moments she is both warrior and weaver, crafting a life for you out of scraps of faith and stubborn love. She hums as she spins wool for the next season's tunics, and you lie in the cradle listening to the soft whir of the spindle. The rhythm of it is your first lullaby, a promise that life will go on even in the face of all that can go wrong. Outside, the seasons shift. The first snow dusts the thatch and the air grows sharper, each breath a small miracle of warmth. Your mother wraps another layer around you, tucking the edges tight, and you drift in and out of sleep to the murmur of her voice. She dreams of you growing strong, of tiny steps on dirt floors, of small hands helping with the churn or the spindle. She dreams of a future that's always just out of reach but always worth the fight. So you're swaddled and watched a fragile hope in a world that never stops turning. And though you don't know it yet, each breath you take is another defiance of the odds, another small victory for the woman who holds you in her heart and her calloused hands. By the time you're a few summers old, the world has shifted from the confines of your mother's arms to the uneven ground outside. You're toddling now, your small feet finding their rhythm on dirt paths and splintery floorboards. The air smells of damp earth hearth smoke and the sour tang of the pigs rooting in the yard. This is your playground, as wide as the village and as old as the fields. You're no longer swaddled, but you're wrapped in a tunic that's seen better days, homespun wool scratchy against your tender skin. It's belted with a bit of rope that used to tie up the firewood, and your mother's quick stitches patch the elbows and knees as best she can. Clothing for a medieval child is a patchwork of necessity, not fashion. And you don't care. The world is full of wonders and your small hands itch to touch them all. Your first chores arrive almost as soon as your first steps. You're sent to shoo the chickens away from the vegetable patch, your squeaky voice competing with their indignant clucks. You're handed a wooden spoon to stir the pot, even if your help only slows things down. You're taught to be useful early because in this world every hand matters. Outside you discover the joys of dirt and discovery. You taste your first handful of mud, ignoring your mother's yelp of disgust. You chase the neighbour's cat until it flees under the thatch, and you squeal with triumph at your newfound dominion. Life is a constant game of trial and error, sometimes a scraped knee, sometimes a gentle scolding. But always there's the underlying beat of survival. One curious tidbit: medieval children were often given small wooden toys, spinning tops, carved horses, or simple dolls stuffed with rags. These weren't luxuries, but tools to keep you occupied while the adults worked. Your own toy might be a stick that becomes a knight's sword one moment and a shepherd's crook the next, and you're as proud of it as any noble child is of a silver goblet. Your mother keeps a wary eye on you as you play. She knows the dangers of this world, open hearths that can swallow a curious child in flame wells that seem to call to you with their dark, glimmering water. She warns you with tales of children who wander too far and vanish into the woods never to be seen again. Historians still argue whether these stories were cautionary or simply a way to ease the ache of real loss. The village is your world, and its rhythms shape your days. You watch the older children carry water from the well, their wooden yokes creaking against thin shoulders. You trail after your mother as she goes to the bakehouse, the smell of fresh bread, a promise that tugs at your belly. You see the blacksmith's forge glowing red as the sun, the rhythmic clink of hammer on iron, a lullaby of labour. Even at this tender age, you're learning the unspoken rules of medieval life. How to greet the priest with a respectful nod, how to step aside when the reeve strides by, how to duck your head when the Lord's men ride through the village on their tall horses. You're learning that your place is at the margin, seen but not heard, helpful, but never in the way. But there's joy too, threaded through these days of dirt and duty. You race the other children around the duck pond, your laughter echoing over the water. You taste the first wild strawberries of summer tart and sweet on your tongue. You sit by the hearth in the evening, listening to your mother's voice weave tales of saints and sinners, of dragons and brave maidens. Her stories stitch the world together for you, each word a thread in the tapestry of your young life. Your father, when he has time, might scoop you up and spin you around until you're giggling and breathless. His rough beard scratches your cheek, and for a moment the world feels safe and solid. But his work calls him back, the fields, the forge, the endless tasks of keeping a family fed. At night the small cottage creaks with the breath of sleeping bodies. You're curled under a rough blanket, your feet cold and your dreams bright. In those dreams you're not just a child of mud and chores, you're a knight, a saint, a wanderer on roads that stretch far beyond the village boundary. Because even here in the dirt of a medieval yard, your imagination is your first escape. The morning brings more chores and more lessons. Your mother shows you how to feed the chickens grain, how to scoop the ashes from the hearth, how to sweep the rushes clean of yesterday's crumbs. She's patient but firm, each lesson a step on the path you'll walk for the rest of your life. And so you grow a small figure in a world that rarely pauses for breath. You learn that play and work are two sides of the same coin, that laughter can live alongside the ache of tired feet and empty bellies. You learn that even in a world of dirt and darkness, there's a fierce kind of beauty in the simplest things, the warmth of the sun on your face, the taste of fresh bread, the soft murmur of your mother's prayers as the stars wheel overhead. You're a child of medieval earth, and sky of hearth smoke and cow dung of songs that echo back to the beginning of time. And tonight, you're safe in your dreams even as the world outside your door turns on its ancient creaking wheel. Puberty arrives quietly, like the first blush of dawn on a frosty morning, at first unnoticed, then impossible to ignore. Your body begins to change your hips, rounding your voice, deepening into the gentle hum of a young woman's song. Your mother watches you with both pride and worry, for this moment is both a blessing and a burden in the medieval world. You start to feel the weight of your own skin in a new way, the flutter of something secret in your chest when you see the young men laughing by the forge or hauling sacks of grain. Your hair grows thicker, your cheeks flush with the bloom of youth, and the older women of the village notice. Their eyes weigh you like a loaf of bread, wondering if you'll rise to the expectations placed on you. Your mother fusses over your dress, adjusting the neckline to show just enough of your growing figure, but not too much. She braids your hair with ribbons on feast days and smooths your skirts so you don't trip over your own feet. These small acts are lessons in how to be seen, how to walk the fine line between modesty and allure, between child and woman. The village women gather around the well, trading gossip and recipes for thick pottage, but you catch the edge of their whispers. They talk of who's betrothed and who's still waiting, of who has caught the reeve's eye and who's already filling out a wedding gown. You stand at the edge of these conversations, your stomach a tangle of excitement and fear, because you know that soon, very soon, your name might be on their tongues. One curious tidbit: medieval girls were often betrothed as young as 12, though marriage might wait a few more years until the bride was physically ready. The line between between girl and woman was drawn not by age but by the curves of your body and the willingness of your family to make a match. Your father starts to look at you differently too, not with tenderness but with calculation. You're no longer just his daughter. You're a bargaining chip in the delicate dance of village alliances. Who will you marry, the baker's son with flour-dusted hands and a kind smile? Or perhaps the Reeves' nephew who has a pig to his name and a sharp eye for your dowry? Historians still argue whether medieval marriages were purely transactional or if there was room for genuine affection. But in your heart you know the truth. Love is a luxury for those with full bellies and sturdy walls. For you, marriage will be a matter of survival, of securing bread and roof, of weaving your future out of the same threads your mother used to mend your cradle. Your mother sits you down one night by the hearth, her voice soft and low as she speaks of what's to come. She tells you of the wedding bed, of the duties you'll owe to the man who claims your hand. She doesn't speak in the honeyed phrases of love ballads, but in the practical language of hearth and home. You'll need to keep him fed, she says, and keep his children clothed. You'll need to be both quiet and clever, never let him think you're smarter than he is, even if you are. It's a harsh lesson, but it's the only one she has to give. Because in this world, a woman's worth is measured in her ability to bear children and manage a household. You feel the weight of that knowledge settle into your bones, a burden you'll carry for the rest of your life. Still, there's a small rebellion in you, a spark of defiance that flickers when you hear the older girls laughing in the fields, or catch a glimpse of the travelling peddler's bright silks. You wonder if there's more to life than hearth ash and bread dough, if you might carve out a corner of joy for yourself in this world that seems determined to shape you like clay. And then one evening the match is made. Your father haggles over ale with the family of the boy who will be your husband. You're not part of the conversation, but you feel its weight in every glance, every nod of his head. The deal is sealed with a handshake and a prayer, and just like that your future is no longer yours. You lie awake that night, listening to the wind rattle the shutters, feeling the weight of your own heart thudding in your chest. You wonder what he looks like in the dark, this boy who will one day share your bed. You wonder if he'll be kind or cruel, if he'll listen to your laughter or silence it with a frown. Your mother smooths your hair in the morning, her hands gentle and her eyes bright with a mixture of hope and sorrow. You'll be a good wife, she says, her voice a lullaby and a command all at once. And you nod, because what else can you do? In this world, a woman's path is as narrow as the church aisle she'll walk down in her best linen, her head bowed and her hands trembling. So you breathe deep and step forward, a girl poised on the edge of womanhood, the scent of hearth smoke and wildflowers in your hair. You tell yourself that there will be moments of light in the years to come. Laughter with your sisters, the sweet ache of your first dance, the hush of your own child's first cry, and you cling to that hope like a charm against the darkness. The wedding day dawns with a hush of anticipation, the air thick with the scent of bread baking and the soft shuffle of feet across rush-strewn floors. You rise before the sun, your mother's hands already busy at the hearth, brewing a thick porridge to fill your belly for the long day ahead. Your dress hangs from a wooden peg, simple but carefully mended, the best your family can offer. Your hair is plaited tight, woven with scraps of ribbon that once belonged to your grandmother. There's no white gown, no flurry of lace, just wool and linen warm against your skin, a reminder that this day is both a celebration and a contract. Your mother fusses over each braid, her fingers deft and gentle. Her eyes catch yours in the smoky light, and you see the flicker of sadness there. She knows as you do that this day will change everything. The village gathers in the small chapel, its walls cool and damp with centuries of whispered prayers. The priest stands ready, a thin smile under his worn hood. He'll speak the words that bind you, words older than the timber beams above your head. And you'll stand there, your hands trembling, your heart a wild drumbeat in your chest. Your groom waits for you at the altar. a boy you've known only through sideways glances and shy smiles. His tunic is neat, his hair combed back with a splash of water, and his hands twist nervously at his belt. You catch his eye and see your own fear reflected there, a moment of shared vulnerability in a world that rarely makes room for it. One curious tidbit: in some medieval villages, guests would toss grains of barley or wheat at the couple. As they left the chapel, a small wish for fertility and abundance. It's a sweet tradition, a moment of gentle hope amid the harsh demands of daily life. The priest's voice rises and falls, Latin words you barely understand weaving a spell around you both. He speaks of duty and devotion, of the weight of marriage in the eyes of God. You feel the power of those words settle into your bones, a promise you can't take back. Historians still argue whether medieval weddings were more about faith or family alliance, but as you stand there, your hand in his, you know that for you it's a mixture of both a leap of faith and a tether to your people. The vows come next, spoken in a hush that seems to fill the whole chapel. Your voice wavers, but you say the words obedience, fidelity, the promise to share hearth and home. And when it's done, the priest blesses you both, and you're no longer just a girl in your mother's house. You're a wife now, your future tied to his. The feast that follows is a blur of laughter and ale, of bread and honey and the soft clink of wooden cups. The women of the village slip you knowing smiles, the men slap your husband's back and offer ribald jokes you try not to hear. The air is warm with bodies pressed close, the sweet tang of roasted meat and the sharper bite of the pottage that's been bubbling all day. You dance once your hand in his, your feet finding the rhythm of the pipes and the thump of the drum. It's a small joy, a moment of lightness in a day heavy with meaning. And you cling to it because you know that soon the music will fade and the real work of marriage will begin. As the sun sinks and the candles burn low, you're led to the bedchamber, a simple room with a straw-stuffed mattress and a wooden chest for your new linens. The women gather around you, giggling behind their hands as they help you out of your dress and into a simple shift. Your mother lingers the longest, her eyes soft and sad. She presses a kiss to your forehead, a blessing and a farewell all at once. Then they're gone, and it's just you and him, the air heavy with the scent of rushes and the hush of the night. You sit on the edge of the bed, your hands twisting in your lap, and he stands there looking as unsure as you feel. There's an awkwardness in the room, a sense that you're both playing a part in a story that's been told 1,000 times before. He reaches for you, gentle but determined, and you take a breath, willing yourself to meet him halfway. It's not a night of passion, not like the minstrels sing of in the market square. It's a quiet fumbling, joining a recognition that you're bound to each other now in ways that go beyond flesh. You listen to the sounds of the village outside, the distant bark of a dog, the low murmur of voices still lingering by the fire. The world keeps turning indifferent to your small drama, and in the darkness you find a kind of comfort in that, because if the world can keep turning, so can you. You fall asleep at last, the weight of his arm heavy on your waist, the scent of earth and sweat and something new on the air. You dream of the hearth fire back at your mother's house, of the soft lullabies she used to sing. But you also dream of tomorrow, of bread, to bake of fields, to tend of the quiet moments you might find with him amid the chaos. And in the hush of the night you realise that this is just the beginning. The wedding night is a threshold, a doorway into a life that will test you and shape you, and perhaps bring moments of laughter and grace. You are a wife now, and your journey is just beginning. The first days of marriage slip by in a blur of tasks that feel both familiar and entirely new. You rise before dawn, the grey light creeping across the packed earth floor, and you kneel to coax the hearth fire back to life. Your fingers are cracked from the cold, your breath fogging in the chill air, but you move with practiced ease. This is the work you've always known, only now it's in a different hearth, a different home. The cottage you share with your husband is small, its walls patched with wattle and daub. the thatch above your head alive with the scurry of mice. You sweep the rushes clean, scatter fresh herbs to sweeten the air, and mutter a quick prayer that the day ahead will be kind. Because in this new life, each day is a test, a chance to prove yourself as a wife, a housekeeper, a partner in the hard grind of survival. You're not alone in this. Your husband watches you, his eyes following the rhythm of your movements. He's quiet, a man of few words, but there's a softness in the way he reaches to help you with the heavy pot, or the way he pauses to kiss your cheek when he thinks no one is watching. It's not the grand romance of the ballads, but it's something that feels like the slow, patient building of trust. Your duties fill every hour. You mend his shirts with careful stitches, your needle darting in and out of the rough cloth. You patch his hose, scrape the pots clean, and keep the bread dough rising by the gentle warmth of the hearth. The days are long and your body aches by sundown, but there's a quiet satisfaction in the work. You're weaving the fabric of your life together, thread by thread, need by need. One curious tidbit, medieval wives often kept a small household book of recipes and remedies passed down from mother to daughter. It was a treasure trove of knowledge: how to soothe a baby's cough with honey and sage, how to dye wool with onion skins, how to brew ale strong enough to sell at the market. Your own book is still in your mother's hands, but you're already adding to it in your mind, each lesson a new entry. The hearth is the heart of your new home, its smoky glow both comfort and challenge. You spend hours here stirring pottage, thick with barley and beans, baking bread in the small clay oven, and tending the pots of herbs that hang in the warm air. Historians still argue whether the medieval kitchen was a domain of female power or just another burden, but to you it feels like both. Here you can shape the world in small sustaining ways, turning scraps into meals, weaving warmth from ashes. Your husband works the fields most days, his back bent over the heavy soil, the wooden plough creaking as it cuts through the earth. When he returns, he smells of sweat and fresh-turned dirt, and you welcome him with a bowl of hot broth and the quiet comfort of a clean hearth. You don't speak much words or a luxury when there's work to be done, but there's a growing understanding in the way you move around each other. In the evenings you sit together by the fire, your hands busy with mending or spinning while he sharpens his sickle or patches his boots. Sometimes he tells you stories of the village, the reeve's new rules, the gossip at the market, the price of barley creeping higher. You listen, nodding your mind, already turning to the tasks of tomorrow. And always in the back of your mind there's the knowledge that this is only the beginning. You're expected to bear children, to fill the cottage with small voices and laughter. The thought fills you with both hope and fear. A hope that your body will be strong enough, a fear of the pain and danger that comes with each birth. But for now, that's a worry for tomorrow. Tonight you focus on the simple joys, the warmth of the fire, the soft hush of your husband's breath beside you. Your mother visits, sometimes her hands full of herbs and gossip. She fusses over your hearth, tisking at the soot on the chimney stones and slipping you small gifts, a new wooden spoon, a sprig of rosemary to hang above the door. She tells you not to let the hearth fire die, not just because it's your warmth and your light, but because it's a symbol of your place here. A dead hearth is a dead home, she says, and you believe her. The days turn to weeks, the weeks to months, and you find your own rhythm in this new life. You learn the quiet language of the household, the soft scrape of broom bristles on earth, the hiss of broth bubbling over the fire, the gentle creak of the cradle when you dream of the children to come. You find small moments of peace in the clatter and rush, a stolen sip of ale, a breath of fresh air at the doorway, a shared laugh over the way the cat always finds the warmest spot to nap. And through it all you realise that this is what it means to be a medieval wife. It's not the songs of minstrels or the fairy tales whispered by the fire. It's the daily grind of work and worry, the small triumphs of a meal well made or a tear well mended. It's the slow weaving of love from the threads of duty and habit, the gentle hope that tomorrow will be just a little easier. You're a wife now, and each day you're carving out a place for yourself in this world of hearth smoke and hard-won comfort. And as you drift to sleep beside your husband, the fire crackling low, and the weight of the day settling into your bones, you find a small, fierce pride in that simple, quiet fact. The seasons turn each one bringing its own demands, and you find yourself caught in their eternal cycle. Spring's first breath means planting and tending kneeling in the black earth alongside your husband, your fingers caked with mud and hope. You feel the cool soil beneath your nails and the ache in your back as you coax life from the stubborn ground. By summer the fields are a sea of green, the barley heads bobbing in the warm wind like dancers at a feast. You work from dawn to dusk, your hands red with berry juice, your feet calloused and strong. The sun burns your skin, and your hair smells of sweat and crushed grass. But there's a fierce satisfaction in the work. You're feeding more than just your household. You're feeding the promise of winter's survival. Autumn brings the harvest, a rush of hands and laughter baskets brimming with apples and turnips, grains threshed with the beat of wooden flails. You join the other women at the edge of the fields, your voices raised in rough harmony as you strip the stalks of their grain. Historians still argue whether these harvest feasts were acts of celebration or desperate necessity, but for you they are both moments of joy stolen from the relentless demands of survival. Winter is the hardest, the cold creeping through every crack in the walls, the nights long and dark. You mend and patch spinning wool by the fire's flickering light, your breath clouding in the cold air. You cook thick pottage, stirring slowly to keep the hunger at bay, and tuck hot stones wrapped in cloth at the foot of the bed to steal a bit of warmth. There's a kind of quiet magic to winter nights, a hush that settles over the village, broken only by the howling wind and the soft murmur of prayers. Through it all, your hands are never still. You carry water from the well, the wooden buckets knocking against your legs with each careful step. You haul logs from the woodpile, split them with practiced ease, and stack them neatly by the hearth. Your husband works the fields with the other men, but the house is your domain, each swept corner, each loaf of bread, each carefully mended tear a testament to your labour. One curious tidbit: some medieval women would hang small bundles of herbs, sage for wisdom, thyme for courage, rosemary for remembrance above the hearth or in the rafters. These were more than just spices. They were charms against sickness and sorrow, little pockets of hope and protection. Your days are measured by these small acts of devotion, and though the work is endless, there's a rhythm to it that becomes a kind of comfort. You hum as you work the same songs. Your mother sang the same songs her mother sang before her. They're songs of endurance and grace, melodies that weave through the clatter of pots and the creak of wooden doors. Your husband comes in from the fields each night, his face ruddy with cold or sun depending on the season. He brings stories of the world outside, rumours of war on distant borders, the price of wool at market, the fate of a neighbour's cow. You listen, your hands still busy, and share your own news, in turn the state of the bread dough, the mischief of the goats, the ache in your knees that won't quite go away. You find small moments of laughter, two bright sparks in the grind of daily life. Like when the cat tips over the milk pail and your husband curses, only to laugh when you chase the cat around the cottage like a child. Or when the old widow down the lane swears her goose has been bewitched because it lays 2 eggs in a day. These moments don't change the world, but they lighten the weight of it. And always there is the loom. You sit at it in the evenings, your shuttle flashing back and forth as you weave coarse cloth from wool you carded yourself. It's slow work, each thread a testament to patience and necessity. You think of the generations of women who sat at looms just like this one, their hands moving in the same rhythm, their lives bound to the same ancient patterns. The seasons are your teachers, your tasks shifting with the weather's moods. In spring you bend to plant, in summer you sweat and labour, in autumn you gather and store, in winter you hunker down and wait. It's a cycle older than memory, older than the stories the priest tells in the cold stone church, and it shapes you as surely as the loom shapes the cloth beneath your fingers. You sleep each night with the scent of earth and wood smoke clinging to your hair, your body heavy with the ache of honest work. In your dreams you see the fields in every season, the promise of green shoots in spring, the golden wave of summer's barley, the crackling hush of frost in winter. And in each dream you're there, your hands busy, your heart steady. This is your life, a tapestry of labour and laughter, of small triumphs and endless chores, and as you close your eyes each night, the steady beat of the seasons hums in your blood, a promise that no matter how hard the day, there will always be another dawn. Your days settle into a rhythm that's both comforting and relentless. Each morning you rise in the chill light, the embers of the hearth still warm beneath your fingertips. You knead bread dough, your hands sticky with flour, the yeasty smell of life rising in the quiet dawn. You've learned the feel of dough that's just right, neither too wet nor too stiff, a small triumph in a world of endless demands. The bread is your daily alchemy, but there's another craft that defines your place in the village brewing. You're an alewife now brewing small beer for your family, and the stronger stuff for the men who gather at the end of the day. Brewing is as much a woman's work as baking a delicate balance of grain and heat and time. Your kitchen becomes a workshop of scents, the sweet malted barley, the tang of yeast, the faint sharpness of hops if you're lucky enough to have them. You tend the pot with care, stirring slowly as the liquid simmers. The steam curls around your face soft and warm, and you hum a tune to keep time. Brewing is more than just drink, it's a currency, a comfort, a connection to the community around you. A well-brewed ale can ease the sting of a long day's work or sweeten the tongue of a neighbour who might otherwise bear a grudge. One curious tidbit: some medieval brewers added a pinch of crushed eggshell to the brew to help clarify the ale, a small magic trick that's half science, half folklore. You try it yourself one day, and when the ale runs clear and golden, you can't help but feel a quiet pride in your own cleverness. The bread and the beer are your gifts to your family and your place in the village. Historians still argue whether this gave medieval women a kind of power, an economy of flour and yeast that ran alongside the clink of coin and the barter of livestock. You feel it in the way your neighbours nod when they sip your ale, or in the small smile your husband gives you when he tears into a warm loaf at supper. But the kitchen is only part of your world. There's the endless cycle of washing and mending, of feeding chickens and gathering kindling, of patching the roof with rushes and weaving new cloth to replace what's worn thin. The days stretch out, each one a mirror of the one before, yet each with its own small surprises. Sometimes you pause at the doorway to watch the sun slip behind the fields, the sky streaked with rose and gold. In those quiet moments you feel a kind of peace settle over you, a reminder that even in a life of endless chores there can be beauty. The cat twines around your ankles and you laugh, a soft sound that's quickly swallowed by the hush of dusk. Your husband joins you at the door, his hands rough from the plough, his shoulders heavy with the weight of the day. He doesn't say much, but he rests a hand on your back, and you lean into him, sharing the silence. These small gestures are the glue that binds your days together. No grand declarations, just the steady hum of shared work and quiet understanding. When the evening chill settles in, you light a tallow candle and return to your tasks. You skim the scum from the brewing pot, check the bread dough rising near the fire, and hum a snatch of an old song. The cat curls on the hearth, and the dog sighs in his sleep, and for a moment the world feels safe and sure. But there are dangers too. The brewing fire can flare up if you're careless, the pot boil over if you turn your back for even a moment. The bread can sour, the ale can spoil, and each failure is another chip at your family's fragile security. You feel these risks in your bones, a low ache that never quite goes away. You've learned to be both careful and quick, your hands moving with the muscle memory of countless days. And when you slip a fresh loaf from the oven, its crust golden and crackling, or when you draw a mug of ale that's clear and rich, you feel a fierce pride in your own skill. The village feels it too. Your neighbours stop by drawn by the scent of bread or the promise of a fresh brew. They linger at your door, swapping gossip and small favours, weaving the fabric of community around your hearth. You share what you can, a heel of bread, a cup of ale, and in return you hear news of the world beyond your cottage walls. One evening, the blacksmith's wife tells you of a travelling peddler who's brought bright silks and strange spices to the market. Your heart tugs at the thought of those bright colours so far from the dun of your daily life. You dream of a scrap of red to stitch into your dress, a bit of brightness to catch the sun. But for now, you're content with the glow of the hearth, the smell of baking bread, and the slow, steady rhythm of the brewing pot. These are the tools of your trade, the small magics that keep your family fed and your place in the world secure. As you drift to sleep beside your husband, the scent of bread and ale still clinging to your hair, you feel a quiet triumph in every ache of your hands. This is your kingdom, humble, but yours built not with walls or swords, but with flour and fire, and the patient strength of a medieval woman. The seasons keep their steady march, each one reshaping your tasks and testing your patience in new ways. As the days lengthen or shorten, your chores shift with the sun, and you move through the year like a dancer in a never-ending performance. Spring brings the promise of green shoots and new beginnings. You kneel in the dirt, your fingers cold and raw from turning the soil, planting rows of beans and onions, carrots and leeks. The damp earth clings to your hands and you feel the weight of every seed as a small, stubborn hope. The sun warms your shoulders and you pause sometimes to lift your face to the sky, grateful for each soft breeze that smells of life reborn. Your husband repairs the fences his hammers beat, echoing like a pulse in the cool air. The children, if you have them, chase each other between the rows, their laughter bright as the first birdsong of the year. You scold them for trampling the seedlings, but you can't help but smile at the bright flush of their cheeks and the mud on their small boots. In summer the pace quickens. The barley ripens in golden waves and you join the other women in the fields, your skirts tucked up, and your feet bare in the warm dirt. You stoop and cut the sickle's rhythm, a song in your hands, your back aching, and your arms streaked with sweat. The air hums with insects, the sun beats down, and you drink water in greedy gulps, grateful for each stolen moment of rest. One curious tidbit, some medieval women tied small bouquets of flowers to their belts in summer, not just for beauty but to ward off the sour sense of sweat and toil. You pluck a sprig of lavender or sweet marjoram for yourself, tucking it in your belt and feeling just for a moment like a lady in a grand manner instead of a woman bent over the fields. Autumn arrives with a sigh of relief and a rush of harvest. The apples glow red and gold, the cabbages heavy and round. You gather and store filling barrels and baskets, your hands moving in endless circles as you pack roots and grain for the lean months ahead. You trade gossip with your neighbours as you work laughter and small complaints weaving through the air like bright threads in a tapestry. Historians still argue whether these busy months are a time of community or of quiet desperation, maybe both. For you, it's a dance of necessity and camaraderie, the rhythm of shared labour holding back the spectre of winter. Winter is your test. The cold creeps in through the cracks, the nights long and bitter. You mend and patch your needle, slipping through wool and linen by the flickering glow of the hearth. You stir the pottage pot and watch the shadows dance on the walls, your breath a pale cloud in the freezing air. Each log you burn is a precious thing, the memory of sunlit days stacked in the corner of your cottage. You find yourself turning inward in these months, your thoughts drifting to the small wonders that break up the long nights. The way the snow glows blue in the moonlight, the hush of the world beneath a blanket of white. The hush of your husband's breathing as he sleeps, the soft weight of the cat curled on your feet. These small moments of beauty keep you warm in ways the fire never can. The village slows too. Work continues, but there's a hush in the air, a shared understanding that winter is a time for patience and prayer. You gather with your neighbours for the feast days, Candlemas St. Bridget's Day, small oases of light in the dark. You sing songs older than memory, your voices weaving warmth in the cold stone church. You're a part of this cycle now, your life measured by the turn of the seasons, the rise and fall of sun and shadow. You find pride in each task you master, each meal you coax from scant stores, each stitch that holds back the winter's chill. There's a quiet power in this knowledge, a sense that even in a world that asks everything of you, you have something to give back, and there's laughter too bright and defiant. Like when the chickens roost on the thatch and refuse to come down, or when your husband's boot splits and he curses in a voice that makes you laugh until your ribs ache. These moments are small rebellions, reminders that even in the hardest seasons there is room for joy. As the year turns and the cycle begins again, you feel yourself rooted in it, part of a rhythm older than any song, stronger than any winter chill. You kneel in the dirt, you stand in the fields, you hunch by the fire, and in each season you find your own strength quiet and unyielding. You're a medieval woman, and this is your life. A dance of seasons, a prayer of hands and breath and heart. And tonight, as you drift to sleep beneath the heavy blankets, the hush of winter wrapped around you, you know that when the sun rises tomorrow, you'll be there to greet it, ready to begin again. As the winter thaws and the first green shoots push through the muddy ground, your hands find their rhythm again, not just in the fields or at the hearth, but at the loom and with the needle. Spinning and weaving are the heartbeats of your quiet labour, the threads that bind your family's life together as surely as the beams of your small home. You sit by the small window where the pale light falls a basket of wool at your feet and the spindle humming in your fingers. The wool is scratchy and soft all at once, a comforting weight that tethers you to this moment. You draw the fibres out in a thin, even thread, twisting them with care, your hands remembering what your mother's hands taught you. The spindle spins, and with it you spin stories in your head of bright market stalls and distant towns of ladies in fine gowns and knights in shining mail. But here in the hush of your home, it's the simple sturdy cloth that matters most, cloth to warm your husband's back in the field cloth to swaddle the children you hope to bear. Weaving is a rhythm to the shuttle's soft slap against the warp, the thread singing beneath your fingers. You work by the fire in the evenings, the air scented with wood smoke and the faint tang of sheep's lanolin. Your husband sharpens his blade nearby, his quiet presence a comfort. These are the moments that stitch your days together, small, steady labours that keep the cold at bay. One curious tidbit: in some villages, women would weave small charms, a lock of hair, a tiny sprig of rosemary into the hems of garments for protection. You think of this as you work your fingers, pausing to press a bit of green into the cloth, a small secret blessing for the one who will wear it. Historians still argue whether this domestic work was a form of power or simply another burden heaped on your shoulders. But in your hands it feels like both. Each length of cloth is a shield against the cold, each careful stitch a mark of your own quiet defiance. You may not swing a sword or plough a field, but you weave the fabric of survival just as surely. The loom creaks beneath the weight of the growing cloth, and you find a strange sort of peace in its song. The shuttle flicks back and forth, and with each pass you bind yourself to the past and the future, your mother's hands, your grandmother's hands, all of them whispering through the threads. The children, if they've come, tumble at your feet, their small fingers sticky with honey, their laughter bright as the morning sun. You hush them gently, tucking them in close, when the wind howls at the door, your own body a shield against the world. You mend their tunics, you patch their stockings, and each repair is a small vow that they will be warm, they will be safe. Your husband notices the work, though he rarely says so. He runs his hand along the smooth weave of a new tunic and nods once, a silent praise that warms you more than any song. In these small, unspoken moments, you find the threads of love woven through the cloth of your daily life. The days are long, the nights longer still, and sometimes your fingers ache with the weight of the endless tasks. But when you lay down your spindle and rub the soft fibres between your palms, you remember that this is more than work, it's a testament. A promise that you will endure, that you will make something out of nothing, that your hands can shape the world in small but lasting ways. You trade some of your weaving at the market, coarse cloth for the miller's flour, or a bright bit of dyed wool for a handful of onions. Each trade is a thread that ties you to your neighbours, each small exchange a dance of survival and trust. The market is a jumble of noise and colour, the scent of sweetmeats and sweat, the bright glint of tin cups and copper coins. It's a reminder that the world is larger than your hearth, but that your place in it is no less vital. At night, as you sit by the hearth, the glow of the fire turning the wool in your hands to gold, you feel the weight of the day slip from your shoulders. Your husband's quiet breathing, the cat's soft purr, the steady tick of the loom, these are the sounds of your life. The music of a world built from small patient acts. And as you close your eyes, the scent of smoke and wool in your hair, you dream of the cloth you'll weave tomorrow, the bright threads that will slip through your fingers, and the way each one will carry your story forward. You are a medieval woman, and this is your power to take the rough raw stuff of the world and spin it into warmth and hope. The sun peeks through the shutters as you rise the village already stirring with the promise of the day. You slip on your patched wool gown, your fingers quick at the ties, and gather your woven baskets. Today you're headed to the market, a small but vital moment in the endless churn of daily life. The market square is a swirl of colour and noise, the air thick with the mingled scents of herb smoke and the tang of fresh dung. You're part of this living tapestry, now moving with easy familiarity among the stalls and wagons. Your basket holds skeins of wool you spun by the hearth, a small jar of ale you brewed, and a few bundles of rushes to trade or sell. The market isn't just a place to barter, it's a stage for gossip, laughter, and quiet rebellion. The women gather near the bread stalls, trading news of births, deaths, and the petty scandals that keep the village's heart beating. You linger there, your ears half listening as you weigh the worth of each word. One curious tidbit, some medieval women carried small wooden tally sticks to record what they'd traded, tiny notches marking the quiet economy of their lives. You don't have one yourself, but you keep the numbers in your head, each trade a careful calculation. Your hands brush against the rough linen of another woman's apron as you reach for a handful of onions. She gives you a quick smile, the sort that says she knows the ache in your shoulders, the weight of the day's tasks. There's a quiet sisterhood here, a shared understanding that goes beyond words. Your husband is elsewhere bartering for grain or iron nails, his voice low and steady in the hum of the market. You watch him from the corner of your eye, his broad shoulders easy to spot in the crowd. He catches your glance and gives a small nod, a silent reassurance that even in this bustling chaos you're bound together. Historians still argue whether medieval markets gave women a taste of independence, or simply another layer of labour. But for you, this small square of packed earth and bright cloth is a place of power, a chance to shape your family's fortune with every word, every barter. You trade a skein of your homespun for a wedge of hard cheese, its sharp scent making your mouth water. A bundle of rushes goes for a small bundle of herbs, sage and thyme, to keep the winter fevers at bay. Each trade is a small victory, a moment of quiet triumph. But the market isn't just for goods, it's a stage for stories. You hear tales of a travelling minstrel who sang so sweetly the reeve's daughter swooned at his feet. Of the priest's new sermon, all fire and brimstone about women who gossip too much. You roll your eyes at that, sharing a knowing glance with the butcher's wife. If the priest had his way, the market would be silent, and what a dull world that would be. There's laughter here, too bright and bubbling like the ale you pour at home. A juggler tumbles in the square, his cap bright with feathers, and you laugh along with the children as he tosses apples into the air. For a moment the weight of the world lifts, and you remember that even in this hard life there is joy. You tuck your winnings into your basket and head for home, your feet tired, but your heart a little lighter. The path back to your cottage winds through fields shimmering with barley, and past the low stone wall where the children chase chickens and dreams in equal measure. At home you unpack your treasures with a quiet pride. The cheese, the herbs, the small lump of beeswax for the candles you'll shape by hand. Your husband leans in the doorway, his eyes soft with the simple pleasure of your small triumphs. You trade stories as you put the kettle on who said what, who sold what, and in the sharing you stitch the fabric of your life a little tighter. The market is just one day in the endless tide of days, but it's a day that reminds you of your own place in the world. You're more than the keeper of the hearth. You're a trader, a negotiator, a quiet force in the weave of village life. As the sun sets, you sit by the hearth, the small treasures of the day spread out before you like bright beads on a string. You turn each one over in your hands, feeling the weight of your own labour, your own cleverness. You've traded not just goods, but your own patience and skill, your laughter and your sharp eye. And as the shadows grow long and the fire crackles low, you smile to yourself a quiet, knowing smile. Because in the end, it's these small exchanges of goods, of stories of laughter, that make the hard days softer and the long nights shorter. You're a medieval woman, and today, the market was your stage. The days grow shorter, and the chill in the air tells you it's time to gather what healing you can. The garden behind your cottage is a humble patch of green, its rows neat beneath your careful hands. You move among the herbs, sage, rosemary, chamomile, each plant a promise of comfort in a world that rarely offers it. You learn these quiet arts from your mother just as she learned from hers. The soft murmur of wind in the leaves, the sharp tang of crushed thyme on your fingers. These are your companions in the hush of the afternoon. You gather the herbs in small bundles, tying them with scraps of yarn dyed with onion skins, and hang them in the rafters to dry. Their scent fills the cottage, a reminder that even in the hardest seasons there is hope. One curious tidbit: medieval women believed that garlic kept away not just fevers but also evil spirits. You plant it in careful rows near the door, each bulb a small pungent guardian against the dark. The children, if you have them, trail at your heels, their small fingers plucking clover, and daisies offering them to you with bright smiles. You tuck the flowers behind your ear and show them how to crush mint leaves to freshen their breath. In these moments you feel the quiet hum of life in your veins, the gentle power of tending what grows. Historians still argue whether these herbal practices were true healing or hopeful superstition. But for you they're a lifeline. When the winter coughs creep through the village, you're ready with a poultice of sage and honey, a brew of chamomile and meadow sweet to ease the ache in the bones. The midwife stops by her basket, heavy with roots and resin. She's older than you, her hair gone white as linen, but her eyes are bright with secrets. She shows you how to make a salve for burns, how to brew a tea to chase away the fever dreams. You trade her a loaf of bread for her knowledge, each crumb a thank you for the wisdom she shares. You keep a small jar of rosemary steeped in oil, rubbing it into your husband's shoulders when he comes in from the fields, his body stiff from the plough. The warmth of your hands and the sharp, sweet scent ease the ache in his bones, and he sighs a low sound of relief. It's a simple kind of magic one that begins with a seed pressed into soil and ends with a soft touch in the firelight. Your neighbours come to you too, drawn by the scent of drying herbs and the soft murmur of your voice. The widow down the lane asks for a sprig of yarrow to lay on her husband's grave, a charm for peace in the afterlife. The reeve's wife, pale and tired, asks for mint to ease the sour in her belly. You give what you can, and in return they bring you new small kindnesses, the threads of the village's endless tapestry. At night you sit by the hearth, the bundles of herbs hanging like green prayers above your head. The air is thick with their scent, and you breathe deep, feeling the weight of the day slip from your shoulders. Your husband sits beside you, his eyes soft in the glow of the fire. You share a quiet smile, the kind that speaks of shared burdens and small joys. In these small acts, crushing leaves, brewing teas, tying bundles of green, you find a measure of peace. The world outside may be harsh, but in your hands there is a gentler power, a promise of warmth and healing. As you drift to sleep, the scent of rosemary and sage still clinging to your hair, you dream of the green shoots of spring and the quiet song of bees in the summer garden. And you know that tomorrow and the day after you'll be there, tending the herbs, tending your family, tending the small, fierce flame of life that grows in the heart of every medieval woman. The wheel of the year turns and the village gathers to mark the holy days that break the long rhythm of toil. You wake early on feast days, your breath a small cloud in the cold air, your heart a little lighter with the promise of shared bread and laughter. You scrub the floor with rushes and hang your best linen at the window, the small pleasures of preparation, a balm against the daily grind. The air smells of sweet bread and the tang of green boughs cut fresh from the woods. You tie ribbons in your hair, bright scraps that catch the pale winter light and make you feel just for a moment like a girl again. At church, the priest's voice echoes off the stone walls, a chant of Latin and incense. The statues of the saints watch you with calm, unchanging eyes as you kneel on the cold floor, your hands folded in prayer. You pray for your family's health, for a good harvest, for a little less hunger in the lean months ahead. The feast days are a time to set aside the quiet resentments and small grudges that fester in the long hours of labour. The air hums with music, the low drone of the pipes, and the bright clatter of the tabor. You dance a little, your hands quick to catch your husband's, your laughter bright in the chill air. One curious tidbit: medieval villagers believed that a candle blessed on Candlemas would protect their homes from lightning strikes for the whole year. You keep yours near the hearth, its small flickering light a quiet comfort on stormy nights. Historians still argue whether these festivals were more about faith or a chance to forget the weight of the world for a day. For you they're both a pause in the endless march of work, a breath of joy in the hush of winter. You bring bread and ale to share your own offerings woven from the labour of your hands. The bread is heavy with honey, and spices a small luxury saved for feast days, and the ale is sweet and strong, warming your belly against the cold. You trade stories as you eat tales of small triumphs and secret fears, laughter ringing out like bright bells in the winter dusk. The children run wild, their cheeks pink with cold, their voices bright as the first birds of spring. You watch them with a smile that's half memory, half hope, because you remember what it was to chase through the fields without thought of tomorrow, and you hope fiercely that they will have more tomorrows than you dare dream. As the sun sinks low and the last of the music fades, you gather your family close. You walk home through the hush of the snow, the world softened and made strange by the falling light. Your husband's hand is warm in yours, and you lean into him grateful for the small warmth of his body beside yours. At home you bank the fire and tuck the children into bed, their eyes heavy with sleep and dreams of the bright lights of the feast. You sit by the hearth a little longer, the blessed candle flickering in the corner, and let yourself remember the songs you sang, the laughter you shared, the small moment of grace in the heart of winter. And then you turn back to the quiet tasks that wait for you tomorrow, the mending, the washing, the endless dance of hands and breath and heart. Because even the brightest feast fades, and the world must be woven back together again in the dawn. You drift to sleep with the soft murmur of prayers still in your ears, the weight of the day easing into dreams of saints and candles of bread and bright ribbons. And you know that when the next feast day comes, you'll be ready to sing, to dance, to breathe light into the dark days of a medieval woman's life. As the seasons spin on and the years slip quietly by, you come to know both the deep joys and the sharp sorrows of motherhood. Your belly swells with life more than once your body both cradle and battleground. Each pregnancy is a prayer and a wager, your hands instinctively resting over the soft curve of your belly as you whisper hopes into the quiet of the night. You feel every ache of it, the pull of new life weaving itself into your bones. Some days you move slowly, your breath tight, and your hips sore from the weight of what you carry. Other days you find a strange, fierce power in the way your body can grow something out of nothing, a small defiance against a world that asks so much of you. The midwife visits her hands firm and kind as she checks your pulse, her voice a soft murmur of comfort and caution. She brings you herbs, raspberry leaves to ease the pain, a bitter brew of mugwort for the days when you feel your strength waver. You drink them because you trust her, because in this world of cold stone and hard ground, her knowledge is a beacon. One curious tidbit, some women in the village swear by a charm of iron and red thread tied around your wrist to keep the spirits away from the unborn child. You wear it tucked beneath your sleeve, a small secret spell that you touch when the baby kicks as if to say, "I'm here and I will keep you safe." But not every birth ends in laughter and swaddled cries. You know that too. You've heard the wails that echo in the night, the hush that falls over the cottage when a baby doesn't draw breath. You've seen the small graves at the edge of the churchyard, the earth mounded with sorrow and the quiet weight of what could have been. Historians still argue whether medieval women accepted this risk with stoic faith, or if each loss carved out a hollow place in their hearts. You know it's both. You learn to keep moving because there are always mouths to feed and fires to tend, but the ache of what's lost never truly fades. When your children thrive, their laughter is your song, their small feet chasing each other across the packed earth floor. They pull at your skirts, their hands always reaching for something. Bread comfort, the next small adventure. You teach them to weave rushes for the floor, to gather eggs from the hens, to mind the small bruises and scrapes that come with growing. You sing to them old songs that your mother sang to you, melodies that rise and fall like the breath of the world. In those songs you find a kind of magic one that soothes your fears and wraps them in the gentle promise that there is still beauty here even in the struggle. At night you watch them sleep their small chests rising and falling in the hush of the dark. You tuck the blankets close and whisper prayers to the saints, asking for strength, for health, for the chance to see them grow tall and strong in a world that gives no guarantees. Your husband too learns the quiet strength of fatherhood, though his hands are more used to the plough than to cradling a newborn. He holds the babies awkwardly at first, but there's a tenderness in the way he rests his palm on the back of their heads, as if he knows just how fragile this small hope is. You share the weight of each day, his hands calloused from the field, yours red from the scrub of the hearth. But together you build a home that hums with the small, steady miracles of family. Bread on the table, laughter by the fire, a cradle that rocks gently in the night. And when the time comes for another child, you face it with a mix of fear and quiet faith. You've learned that life is both tender and ruthless, but still you hope. because that hope is the one thing the world can't take from you, the one thing that keeps you rising each day to face the dawn. You're a medieval woman, and in the cradle of motherhood you find both your greatest challenge and your deepest strength. And tonight, as you drift to sleep with the soft hush of your children's breath in the dark, you know that come what may, you will rise again tomorrow to sing, to cradle, to carry on. Life in the village is never lived alone, even if the walls of your cottage feel like the edge of the world. The feudal manor looms at the centre of your days, its heavy stone walls a reminder that no matter how many loaves you bake or how many shirts you mend, there's always a lord to answer to. Your husband bears the weight of this most days, his hands cracked from the plough, his shoulders bent beneath the yoke of taxes paid in grain and sweat. But you too feel it in every thread you spin, every pot you scrape clean, because the manor's reach stretches into every hearth, every field, every small life you coax from the soil. When the steward comes to the door, you're ready with your offerings. Eggs tucked in a basket, a small wheel of cheese, maybe a bundle of dried herbs if the fields were kind that year. His eyes are sharp, his tongue quick, and you stand with your back straight, and your voice soft, because in this world, courtesy is its own kind of armour. Historians still argue whether these small exchanges were acts of quiet resistance or simply the price of survival. You know the truth, they are both. A barter of deference and dignity, a daily balancing act played out beneath the manor's watchful gaze. On market days you see the lord's men ride through the village, their horses' hooves churning up the dust. They wear bright cloth and sharp blades, their laughter loud and careless. You keep your head down, your hands busy, but you watch them with careful eyes. Because power is like a river, it carves the land around it, shaping even those who think they stand apart. One curious tidbit: some medieval villages paid a kind of heriot a death tax to the lord when a tenant passed their best animal claimed as tribute. You hear of this from the widow down the lane, her eyes bright with anger and grief in equal measure. She speaks in low tones of the small pig taken from her yard, and you listen, your own heart heavy with the knowledge that nothing is ever truly yours in this world. But the manor is not all cruelty and tax. There are feast days when the hall doors open and you catch a glimpse of another lifelong tables heavy with meat pies and honeyed wine music that swells beneath the high beams. Your children's eyes grow wide at the sight, their laughter echoing beneath the bright banners. For a moment you let yourself taste the sweetness of it, even if only in memory. You move through this world with quiet care, your small rebellions hidden in the soft twist of your braid, or the songs you sing as you work. In the corners of the market you hear whispers of women who brew ale just a little stronger than allowed, of men who slip an extra loaf of bread beneath their cloak. These are the small stubborn acts of survival, woven into the warp and weft of village life. Your husband stands tall in the face of the steward's demands, his jaw set, and his hands steady on the plough. At night you press your palm to his back, the hard plains of muscle and bone, and you know that in this life of labour and worry you are each other's refuge. The manor may loom large, but your world is built in the spaces between by the glow of the hearth, the hum of the spindle, the laughter shared over a bowl of pottage. It's a world where power is measured not in coin or land, but in the way you hold your head high when the steward's shadow darkens your door. As the sun sinks and the day's work fades into the soft hush of evening, you light a candle and let the wax drip slow and bright onto the worn wood of the table. Your children sleep in the corner, your husband's breath a steady rhythm at your side, and you know in the quiet of the night that this is what endures the small acts of defiance, the quiet dignity of a woman who keeps the hearth burning bright in the shadow of the manor. You are a medieval woman, and this is your kingdom, not the manor's high walls or the lord's rich feasts, but the small circle of light you carve out in the dark, the warmth of your own breath in the cold night air. and as you drift asleep, you know that tomorrow you will rise again to bake, to spin, to stand tall in the face of the world's demands. As the seasons pass and your children grow, the gossip of the village grows with them. The market square becomes a stage for stories whispered behind cupped hands, laughter that's just a little too sharp eyes that linger too long on a neighbour's misstep. You've learned to weave your way through this web of talk with care, your words measured and your smile soft. You hear the rumours, of course, of the widow's daughter who meets the blacksmith's apprentice behind the bakehouse, of the reeve's wife who trades more than gossip at the well, of the old woman who sells herbs that work a little too well, whose garden is a tangle of secrets. You tuck these stories away like scraps of cloth, knowing that in a village as close-knit as yours, every thread matters. One curious tidbit, some medieval women kept a small piece of silver or iron pinned to their aprons to protect against slander, an old charm to keep the words of others from sticking to their skin. You don't have such a charm, but you hold your head high and keep your own counsel, trusting that your work and your kindness will speak louder than any gossip. But not every whisper is harmless. There are stories of women accused of witchcraft, of curses laid with a glance of milk that curdles, and bread that'll not rise. The line between wise woman and witch is thin as a hair, and you feel the weight of it in every bundle of herbs you hang to dry. You know the midwife's knowledge is a blessing, but you also know how quickly that blessing can sour in the eyes of those who don't understand. Historians still argue whether these fears were born of superstition or of the small freedoms that women carved out for themselves. You know it's both the fear of what women know and what they might dare to do. So you choose your words with care, and you share your remedies only with those who ask in trust. The gallows stand at the edge of the village, a silent threat that hums beneath every careless word. You've seen them used, seen the fear in the eyes of those who watch as justice, or something like it, is carried out. You turn away when you can, but you can't help but remember. Because in this world a woman's place is never certain and safety is never guaranteed. You learn to guard your small joys like treasures. The laughter of your children, the soft weight of your husband's hand on yours, the sweet hush of the night when the world grows quiet. These are the things that matter, the truths that stand against the gossip and the fear. At the market you trade your herbs and your weaving, your smile warm but your eyes watchful. You nod to the women who watch you back, each of you weaving your own small thread of strength in a world that can unravel with a single word. You speak carefully, knowing that every word is both a promise and a shield. When the gossip turns to you, and it always does sooner or later, you hold your head high and let your work speak for itself. The bread you bake, the cloth you weave, the children you raise with steady hands and a fierce heart. These are your answers to the whispers, your quiet defiance in the face of a world that is always ready to find fault. At night you sit by the hearth and let the fire's warmth chase away the chill. Your husband sits beside you, his face soft in the flickering light, and for a little while the world outside fades away. The cat curls at your feet, the children soft breathing a lullaby, and you let yourself believe that here at least you are safe. You know that tomorrow will bring more gossip, more rumours, more small cruelties whispered behind closed doors. But you also know that you will rise to meet them, your hands steady and your heart strong. Because you are a medieval woman, and you've learned that the world may be harsh, but you are made of something stronger. As you drift to sleep, the fires glow soft on your face. You whisper a prayer to the saints, one for protection, one for patience, and one for the small, fierce hope that tomorrow will be just a little brighter. And you know that come morning you will rise again, ready to face whatever stories the world might weave around you. Time passes and you feel it in your bones and in the soft lines that crease the corners of your eyes. You're no longer the girl who knelt in the dirt barefoot and laughing, nor the new bride who blushed at the touch of her husband's hand. You've grown into something steadier, matriarch, a quiet pillar in the small world of the village. Your hair has silver threads now, a soft shimmer in the hearthlight that you wear with a quiet pride. The children who once chased geese in the yard are grown their own hands, calloused with the work of the world. Some have moved to other villages, their laughter echoing down distant lanes, but some stay close, their voices and footsteps a comfort in the long evenings. You find a new strength in this age, a calm power that isn't measured in bushels of grain or the weight of the day's chores. The younger women come to you now, their eyes bright with worry or hope. They ask for your counsel, your herbs, your quiet wisdom, and you give it freely, remembering the soft guidance of your own mother, long gone but never far from your thoughts. One curious tidbit: in some villages, the crone, the older woman of the hearth, was believed to have a special connection to the unseen, a keeper of old stories and small magics. You smile at the thought, feeling the weight of the years settle like a cloak around your shoulders. You're no witch, no healer of great renown, but in your careful words and your patient hands you carry something of that quiet knowing. Historians still argue whether these older women wielded real influence or were simply tolerated until they could no longer labour. But in your heart you feel the truth: there is power in age, in the memories you hold, and the stories you keep alive. You've seen enough seasons to know that what endures isn't the chatter of the market square, but the steady heartbeat of the hearth. You tend your garden, still your hands deep in the soft earth, your breath slow and measured. The herbs grow wild now, but you know them each by scent and feel. Rosemary for remembrance, sage for strength, thyme for courage. You dry them in careful bundles, gifts for the young mothers who come to your door with tired eyes and sleepless nights. Your husband's hair is grey, his hand slower on the plough, but his smile is the same as it was on the day you first shared bread at the hearth. In the evenings you sit together in the quiet, his hand warm in yours, the fire's glow soft on your faces. You've grown together, roots twined deep, and in that tangle you find your peace. The children, your grandchildren fill the cottage with their laughter when they visit. They chase each other around the table, their voices bright, their small hands eager to help. You watch them with a soft heart, your mind turning over the long road that brought you here. You tell them stories when the nights are long and the wind howls at the shutters, of the first hearth fire you tended, of the sweet ache of your first dance, of the bread you baked on the morning of your wedding. They listen with wide eyes, their heads on your knees, and in their laughter you hear the echo of your own girlhood, bright and unbroken. There is sorrow too in the quiet of these years. Friends whose voices you no longer hear at the market, the hollow ache of beds left cold by the long sleep. You light a candle for them on the holy days, your voice soft in the hush of the chapel. In the flicker of the flame you feel their presence, a gentle weight at your shoulder that warms the chill of loss. But even in the face of that quiet sorrow you find a measure of grace. The children's laughter, the hush of the hearth, the small stubborn beauty of a new shoot breaking through the frost-hardened earth. These are the treasures you carry, now small bright coins of memory and hope. You're a medieval woman, and though the weight of the years rests heavy on your shoulders, there is a fierce light in your heart still. The world may have shaped you with its calloused hands, but you've grown into something strong and gentle, a keeper of warmth in the long dark. And tonight, as the fire burns low and the breath of the night is soft against the shutter, you let yourself rest. You've earned it every small grace and every quiet triumph. And you know that come the morning you will rise again, your heart steady, and your hands ready to greet whatever dawn the world brings. The days shorten and the cold settles deeper, a quiet reminder that the final season waits for everyone. You feel it in your bones, the slow ache that creeps into your joints, with the winter damp, the heaviness in your breath when you wake each morning. You move slower now, your steps careful on the icy ground, but your eyes are still bright and your mind is clear as the frost on the window pane. You've seen so much babies born in the hush of dawn harvest gathered under a sky gold, with promise feasts and fasts and the endless rhythm of bread and breath. And you know that soon you will join the soft whisper of voices that echo in the walls of the church, the quiet prayers that linger in the cold stone air. There is a kind of peace in this, knowing a hush that settles over you as gently as a blanket. You spend your days tending the small tasks you've known all your life, mending a shirt worn soft by years, stirring the pottage pot with careful hands, smoothing your husband's hair when he sighs at the weight of the world. These small acts are your comfort, the daily proof that you still belong here, even as the shadows lengthen. One curious tidbit: some medieval women believed that death would not come if the hearth fire was kept alive, that each glowing ember was a small promise of life yet to come. So you keep the fire banked high each night, your hands steady on the poker, your breath a soft prayer in the dark. The priest comes to see you sometimes, his voice low and kind as he speaks of the saints and the promise of a life beyond this one. You listen with a half smile, your mind turning over the bright memories that are yours alone, the laughter of children in the yard, the soft hush of snow on the thatch, the quiet, fierce love that has carried you through every trial. Historians still argue whether medieval people feared death or saw it as a gentle ending, a return to the earth that had cradled them all their lives. You know it is both a sorrow and a release, a dark hush and a soft promise. You make your peace in small ways. You mend the last of the winter's socks, your needle dipping and rising like a prayer. You brush your husband's hair away from his forehead as he dozes by the fire, your fingers gentle on the soft grey of his hair. You whisper to the saints when the wind howls through the village, your breath a small flicker of hope in the cold dark. The children come, their voices bright with the careless laughter of youth, and you smile at them, feeling the warmth of their joy seep into your bones. You teach them the old songs, the ones your mother taught you, the ones that taste of hearth smoke and honey on the tongue. In their voices you hear the echo of all the women who came before, and you know that your story will not end with you. At night you lie awake and listen to the soft creak of the rafters, the gentle murmur of the wind in the chimney. You think of all the hands that built this cottage, of all the voices that have filled it with laughter and prayer. You think of your mother's hands, your children's bright eyes, your husband's quiet strength, and you know that you have woven yourself into the very bones of this place. When the time comes, you will greet it with a soft sigh and a small smile, because you have lived well and loved fiercely, and in the end that is all that matters. You're a medieval woman, and this is your final season, a time of rest and remembrance, a quiet turning of the wheel. And as you drift to sleep, the fires glow soft on your face. You feel the weight of the world slip away, leaving only the gentle hush of peace. The final bell tolls soft and low, echoing in the stone heart of the small church. You are wrapped in linen, your hands folded over your chest, a sprig of rosemary tucked gently against your palm. The air is cool and hushed, the scent of beeswax candles and old wood filling the stillness. This is the end of your long journey, the last step on a path worn smooth by countless footsteps before you. Your family gathers in the soft dawn light, their breath white in the cold air, their heads bowed in prayer and memory. Your husband's face is lined with sorrow, but his hands are steady as he lays the last flowers at your feet. Your children stand close, their eyes bright with tears, and the quiet strength you taught them in the rhythm of daily life. The priest's voice is gentle, the Latin words rising and falling like the tide of the sea. You hear them as if from faraway blessings and farewells, the promise of rest in the quiet earth. He sprinkles holy water over your shrouded form, the droplets cool and bright in the soft light, and you feel even now the quiet power of that ancient ritual. One curious tidbit: some medieval women were buried with small charms or tokens, a bit of lace from a wedding gown, a sprig of rue for protection, a small wooden cross. Your daughter slips a scrap of the linen you once wove into your shroud, a small act of love, a final blessing. Historians still argue whether these small gestures were acts of faith, or simply the last tender rebellion of a life lived in quiet defiance. You know they are both a soft promise that even in death your story endures. The churchyard is hushed, the only sound the soft murmur of the wind in the bare branches. The earth is cold but gentle as they lay you down the dark soil, a cradle for your final rest. You are part of this land now, woven into its bones as surely as the old oaks that stand watch over the village. Your family lingers, their hands clasped and their heads bowed, and you feel the echo of their love in the hush of the morning. They will go on your children with their bright eyes and strong hands, your husband with his quiet heart and steady voice. They will carry your memory in the shape of their laughter, the warmth of the hearth, the soft weight of bread in their hands. As the final prayers are spoken, the priest's voice a low murmur in the cold air, your story settles into the quiet earth, a thread in the long tapestry of the village. You're no longer just a wife, a mother, a weaver of cloth and dreams. You're a memory, a whisper of laughter in the rushes, a gentle song in the hush of night. The final bell tolls once more its low steady chime, a promise that life goes on, that the wheel keeps turning, that even in the silence there is a kind of music. You're a medieval woman, and this is your burial bell, soft and low, a final lullaby to guide you to rest. And in the hush that follows there is peace, a quiet end to the long journey you walked so bravely. The wind carries the last of the prayers out over the fields, and the earth closes gently around you, warm and sure. The world will turn, the seasons will spin, and the memory of your hands, your laughter, your quiet strength will linger in the soft glow of the hearth and the bright eyes of the children who carry your name. And so you sleep cradled by the earth and the love of those you leave behind, the final note in the quiet, fierce song of a medieval woman's life. The fire has burned low, the embers pulsing soft and warm, and in this quiet hush your breath slows. You feel the weight of the world ease from your shoulders, the long years of labour and laughter settling into a gentle hush. Outside, the night is deep and soft, the stars a quiet glimmer overhead, the moon a soft lantern to light your final dream. You lie still, your hands at rest, the scent of rosemary and sweet hay wrapping you in memory. The small sounds of the village drift in through the shuttered window, a distant bark, the low murmur of a late-night prayer, the gentle sigh of the wind through the bare branches. These are the voices of a world that keeps turning even as you find your peace. In the quiet, you feel the warmth of every hearth you tended, the rhythm of every song you sang. The bread you baked, the cloth you wove, the laughter you shared, each a small thread in the tapestry of life, each a promise that you mattered, that you were here, that your hands shaped the world in quiet, fierce ways. You're a medieval woman, and your story is written in the hush of the hearth, the laughter of your children, the steady beat of your own heart in the long nights. And as you drift now deeper and deeper into sleep, you know that the world is gentle here, that the earth is soft and warm, and that your rest is well earned. So close your eyes, dear listener. Let the darkness cradle you like a mother's arms. Let the last embers glow softly in your dreams, a gentle promise of light in the dark. Sleep well, knowing that your story is held safe in the quiet earth, and that in every dawn there is a new beginning.